Okay. All right. So today's topic is going to be how to navigate your zip forms through Lone Wolf edition. I've been getting a lot of agents that are having some challenges, and I wanted to go through some of the basics fundamentals on how to navigate, how to create, but more so, some of the tricks that top performers do in order to streamline the process a little quicker, right? When it comes to your documentations, your files, and your submissions, right? And it's both ways, regardless of who you represent, if it's representing the buyer or representing the seller in this case. You know, I wanted to just do a big dive into part of what we have is part of your member services is your zip forms or your contracts. So you go into your car forms, right? car.org. You log into your account. It's going to ask you for your username and password. And once you're in here, then you go to access Realtor Secure Transactions. You click here. That's going to take you to the secure transactions. And these are all of your member benefits. Okay. If you haven't had an opportunity to kind of see what is accessible and available, please make sure to mute yourself. Let me do it. 1 second.
Sorry.
That's okay. These are some of the stuff that you have as part of your membership. Okay, so take advantage of everything that CAR has to offer. On top of handling your transactions, you also have Lion Desk. You have Rent Spree to do rental applications, as you can see down here, and all of the great stuff that CAR provides. But for the sake of today's class, we're going to go into the zipForm edition, which is the one here on the left, Lone Wolf Transactions. You're going to access that. It's going to validate your membership. And once it says continue, click on that. System takes a little bit. Then it's going to um, take you to your main subject section here. Okay. So there's a couple of things that I want to put into perspective. One is on the very top here, you have your dashboard, your forms, your transaction, your templates, your docu inbox task, contacts, partners, and a lead agent if you have that additional premium, right? So if you have this additional premium, it is at additional cost, but it's definitely something if you're doing a lot of business, then I highly recommend having that as part of your process. All right, then you have your tools, your new imports, and then RPR. So one of the things that I get quite often is, how do I change my information? Okay. So when you go to the profile section here, you're going to click here and that you go to profile and settings, and that's going to take you here about me. This is where you can change any information, your name, your email, and all that fun stuff. And then here is office. Okay. This is where you can change and update the information on your brokerage, especially for the individual agents that have transitioned from a different brokerage to our new brokerage. On the very bottom of your zip forms, I still see that a lot of agents have their old previous brokerage. This is the way you navigate it to update that information. When you go to your profile, your settings, and then you go to office, then here is where you're going to be able to update the information, address, city, state, zip code, and phone number,
Yeah, so
and then
that's
you just put save. Okay, please make sure to unmute yourself. All right. The next issue is the signing and secure. Okay, so this is again, if you want to have that extra layer, most of us don't want that extra security, but if you wanted to, it'll send you either a text or an email for that extra protection in case it's been compromised. Okay. You can also reset your password here if you forgot your password. There's another avenue before getting into this, but if you wanted to change it because it's been compromised, you can also go into forms. You can organize your forms by just going here. You can drag. So on your main page, it's going to show what you want as specific line items. So if there's something that very specific that you want, as an example, let's say that I wanted the Downey Association of Realtor as an example, I can bring it up and drag it, okay? Or I can drag it back, okay? You can also do a form option. So you also have where you can restore to its default on the way you look at your documentation in your forms. All right, the next one is the settings. Okay, this is where a lot of struggle is they're not connecting their DocuSign or their e-signature. This is where you have the ability to toggle from one or the other. If you use DocuSign, great. If you use Authentic Sign, then it's perfectly fine. You can toggle. Under settings, it'll take you to e-sign option. Here you can, if you're using one or the other, it's just easier for to. So when you include DocuSign, it's going to ask you for your name or your user, and it's going to update. Okay. You can also on account preference, how the landing screen looks, transaction preferences, templates prefer imported templates, or apply broker agent information if you choose to. You can also include, a percentage of interest rate. If you do calculations through the system, you can base that as well, and you can change that if you'd like to. Okay, I just use sake of today's presentation, 6.5% as an example. Okay, so again, you can use e-license signature, e-sign signature, or you can do DocuSign. If you're having issues with it, my suggestion is to unlink DocuSign and then resubmit it again. Sometimes there's some glitches when it comes to your document, okay, your document in your DocuSign. So if you're having issues where it's not showing up, it's not linking to it, unlink it and then reinstate it again. Sometimes it refreshes the system and then it allows you to now have the DocuSign linked into your zipForms. Questions? I'll show you. Okay, so the question here is if you have multiple people other than your traditional one seller, two sellers, two buyers, right? If you have more than two, you can still add additional signatures on it and modify it, and I'll show you how to do that as well. Got it. Got it. Okay, got it. Okay, so we have an option to use DocuSign and Command or just log into CAR and so no. So the way it works is DocuSign is not a free membership through CAR. You have to have it through KW. If you're a KW associate, you get that as a perk, right? So then whatever your account through KW, you're going to link it into your zipForms. Because if you don't have an account, DocuSign is going to say, yeah, we can create an account, but there's going to be a monthly fee or yearly fee. So that's where you have to determine if you're going to pay for it. But usually if you're a KW agent, it comes as part of your incentives.
Hey, Simon.
Yeah, give me 1 second. What was your question? 1 second, on Zoom. No. So the site will know, the site will only know is if you have a username and password and it recognizes it, then it'll link your DocuSign. That's why you need to know what your office login for DocuSign, and that's the DocuSign that you're going to add. Okay, it doesn't recognize it, so you have to put in your username and password to merge your DocuSign. Make sense? Question on Zoom?
I just had a comment. If
Yes.
you come from another brokerage, as I did, you have to refresh the DocuSign, I found out. And just a little tip, FYI, if you came from another brokerage and it's not quite working, just refresh it like you said, and it'll work. It'll come.
Absolutely. Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Absolutely. Yeah. So if you're having any glitches or problems with your DocuSign, the best thing is to unlink it, because sometimes what happens is when you change brokerages, some funky stuff happens on the back end of these platforms. So unlink it, basically delete it from the system, and then resubmit it again. And that should clear any glitches that the system has. Make sense? Okay. All right, let's continue. So the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is current sign-in as a link. Okay, so a lot of people don't scroll. So here's some of the things that you can attach to your zipForms. Okay, one is Glide. Okay, Rent Spree. So if you want to work together and link all of this stuff, this is the beauty of the system, that it merges with your CAR zipForm edition. So that way it streamlines the process a lot faster when you're navigating, negotiating, and ultimately submitting offers or asking for documentation from your clients. Now, there's also another link that if you want your TC, okay, your transaction coordinator, and she or he is comfortable, you can also assign a link for that TC to be able to go into your system and allow to do anything that you're requesting. And I'm going to show you how that works too as well. Okay.
Hey,
So,
Simon.
yes.
Hey, I'm sorry. Which tab is it to get into this screen here? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it's on your profile.
Settings. Uh-huh.
So you go to settings.
Okay.
Okay. From here you go from settings. Okay, let me go back so you get an idea. 1 second. Okay, then from here you go to settings, right? Then this is going to take you here to about me, and then here you go to settings. Okay, and then this is the first thing that comes up is your DocuSign. This is where you, if you have any issues or want to link up your DocuSign, you do so. You also have the email option if you choose to. And then if you scroll down your account preference, what you want, okay, you want your transaction list or do you want it to show your dashboard list? Okay. So you can play with it and ultimately get something more custom to you. When you open it up, this is what I want to see immediately when I open up my zipForm. Does that make sense? Okay. Then all of the extra stuff here. This is the area where current sign in on links. This is where you can add your Glide, you can add your KW website as well. I think it merges with all that information, your rent spree. I also love, you know, RPR, so it's linked here too, so I can toggle for one as well. I included Seller Shield as part of it, and then Zip CRM. You can also enable home warranty integration if you like, title integrations, moving service integrations, and then earnest integrations. That's again part of what zipForms and the California Association of Realtors. I just choose not to because I already have my specific people that I work with. I don't need that extra junk in my profile, if that makes sense. Okay, let's go to notifications and settings. Okay, so here's your task and checklist. Send notifications. You can, you know, adjust as you like, 3 days, 5 days, whatever the case may be. And again, I don't really use Docu Inbox. If you want any notifications on transactions, email notifications on documents, anything you share, you'll get also part of that. And again, broker approval, email notifications, that's more like if you want me to look at certain documentations, then also you can navigate that with the broker. Here is the what we call the list flash reports, zip codes. So whatever zip code that you service, right, you can do a 50-mile radius to 200-mile radius. And what it does, it identifies any potential list of properties that fall within the parameter of the zip code that you're utilizing. Okay. Also notification of settings. Okay. If you want no email, email me every time a new list of flash is published. Okay. And then an email of the listings every 6 hours. So again, you can toggle of what that looks like once daily, twice daily, so on and so forth. Okay. If you have the additional upgraded platform, then you also get what's called offer place notification. So it's more that it helps that if you have this extra feature, let's say that you have a listing, right? And now you're getting multiple offers. So now you can send on the MLS a link for all buyer agents to submit their offers through this link. And it just categorizes everything and puts it all on a spreadsheet, name of the buyers, the offers, the contingencies, the down payment, and the security deposit. And then also all of the documents is uploaded. So just a cleaner version of all the offers instead of getting an email and then just trying to figure everything and then putting them into separate files. The system, if you have this upgraded feature, can do it all for you. Okay. So send emails with another agent sending you messages through offer place so you can toggle on and off. And then obviously your phone number. Okay. This section here is if you have an assistant or a transaction coordinator, you can give that individual permission to go into your account, but they're limited of what they can and cannot do. You have the ability to put in what they can and cannot do inside your platform. Okay. So if you want to have your transaction coordinator or maybe an assistant or a partner, and they can also navigate this. They'll get a what's called a invitation email, and then that allows them to go in. As you can see, I have an individual here by the name of Shelly Ingram, who is the TC that handles, you know, the paperwork as my TC. So she has access to come in and do what she needs to do. And I'm basically hands off on it, if that makes sense. That's like having someone going in there and doing most of your paperwork and making sure that everything is in alignment, the files and all that fun stuff. Okay. Any questions regarding the settings? Okay. Okay. So now let's go to the dashboard section. Okay. So up here, you have your forms, you have your transactions, you have your templates, and all that stuff that we talked about and discussed. All right, so how do you create a new transaction? Okay. People on Zoom, can you still see my screen?
Yes.
I think we're having some issues with the internet. Okay, great. Okay, so creating a file. So let me go back. So here is how you create a file. You click on new, then you pick and choose what type of client you have. Is it a new listing that you're picking up, a new offer you're going to be submitting, a new lease, okay, a new lease listing, or do you just need a quick e-signature, right? So let's say that we are preparing to make an offer. We're going to click on that, and it's going to ask you for generic information regarding the property in question or, the name of your clients. So the first thing it asks is, what do you want to call this file? Okay. Do you want to call it by the specific clients? Let's just say, for example, we'll call it Mr. and Mrs. Buyer as an example. Okay. And let's say that you have a specific property. The cool thing, and a lot of people don't know, is you can connect through the MLS. Okay. By clicking here, all you have to do is just log into your CRMLS. As long as you have an MLS ID, okay, and I'm gonna pull up my MLS, and I'm just gonna randomly pick a ID number, and we're gonna use that as an example. So I'm gonna log into MLS. The internet is a little slow today,
Simon,
so I
just,
apologize.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I just joined the board yesterday and I wanted to ask, I didn't have, so it's through PWR. Is that correct? If I log into PWR, then I'm able to access the MLS. Is
That
that
is
correct?
correct. Every
Okay.
I belong to multiple boards, but my primary is Pacific West Association of Realtors. But you may be part of CLAW, you may be part of a different board, the South Bay Association, as an example. All right, so here I'll go to the matrix as I'm looking at a property. I'm just going to do a simple search of a specific property. I'm going to look at an active property, and I'm going to pick 90503. I got 23 matches. I'm going to search. And let me just say that I want this SFR here, right? So I want to know this information. So as long as you have this listing ID number, you're going to copy and paste. Then you go back to your transaction. And then here is the ID that you're going to plug in. If you want to add the photo, just click here and then find this information. Now what it does is it provides all of this information without you have to do additional work where you have to type in the address, all of the information, including the agents, the real estate company they belong to, the subject address, APN, and all of the information is already uploaded. So when you're ready to submit an offer, and I'm going to show you how that works, it helps streamline the process a lot faster. So once I have and identify this information, I'm going to say use listing. I click it, then it's in here. Then I can bypass this information because I've already included it through MLS Connect. Now, the next process is, what type of category is it? Well, it's a residential. It's an active. Is it pending? Is it a prospect? Inactive? And be careful, because I've seen a lot of agents, they accidentally put it as prospect. And then when they're trying to pull up the file, they can't find it. And it's like, oh my God, I spent 2 hours putting all this together and I lost it. And the first thing I say is, hey, check your other status And then, oh my goodness, I found it. Okay, so make sure that you know that if it's an active file, keep it in an active. If it's a pending file, go in there and update the information. That way it does not. Please mute yourself. Okay, so again, it just kind of helps streamline the process, okay? You can also put any comments if you want, just to jot your memory. You can put whatever you want here as an example, okay? Then from here, I'm going to save. So what happens now, the system is going to recognize this as a new file that I created on this particular property. Now, again, let's just say that this property does not get accepted. We get our offer rejected, whatever the case may be. You can still update this and change that and put a new property in question to be able to submit a new offer, if that makes sense. Okay, so yeah, and I'll explain it in a little bit. So now we just created a file for this client, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, right? As you can see, you can toggle from here to active, prospect, pending, close, inactive, and fell through, right? But now it has all of this on the left section here, the subject property address. But here you see where RPR. Now you can actually click on here and it should take you into your RPR link. Remember the link and the settings that we have? Now it gives me a little bit more information about this specific property that I know. Well, this property is listed for 1.6. It's a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 1,478 square feet. Okay. It's active as of February 24th. Here's the listing ID number. Now the confidence score says that it's a 4. Okay. Our RVRM says that the property is probably around 1.3. Now, this is an estimate, all right? It doesn't mean that the property is worth 1.3, right? Because at the end of the day, it's what the buyer is willing to pay for it, right? But here you can also look at all of the images on the property, right? The physical images of the property, right? And now you have all of the basic information regarding this, right? We know who the agent is, William Johnson, their phone number, their license information, the company. He's an independent broker out of Carlsbad. Okay, and all the information to kind of help navigate it. And all of this can be shared with your clients, right? Create a report, right? Because it just shows you as a true real estate professional, right? When you can navigate this. And this is all in one area of your car form. Okay, so I'm going to put this aside for now. You can also save this as an example, right? And you can always go back to it. And then from here, you can go back to your zipForm. So here's this section. Now, to start an actual documents in all of the forms, here on this section, it says where it says all forms, right? Where you click here, now a lot of agents fall short on this and they get confused. Up here where it says form libraries, it says the California Association of Realtors. I've seen it where they actually play with it and forgot where they're at, and now it says something different, right? And they say, oh my gosh, I lost all of my forms. Where are my forms? And they're struggling to type in, well, I'm trying to type in RPR or my purchase agreement, and it's not coming up. I says, okay, take a breather, relax. We got this. Just go up here and make sure that you're a part of the California Association of Realtors. You click on that, and then that should take you to all of your forms. Currently, I believe there's about 350 different forms that you can use as part of your job. Okay. So now we found the the purchase agreement, the RPA. So the first thing that I like to do, and this is just me as a nature of habit, I always like to include the cover sheet. The reason is because on the cover sheet, it gives you so much information that once you put it in there, it streamlines everything moving forward. Any addendums, any disclosures, anything that we need to do, it's here, okay? Now, this is where, again, the transaction cover sheet only reflects 2 buyers and 2 sellers, okay? So for the sake of today, I'm going to just explain how you navigate it when you have just 2 buyers. But I'm going to show you how you can add additional buyers if there's more than 2 buyers in the purchase agreement. So let's just say that you have the 2 buyers. You want to check this and this as well, right? Because then it knows, the system knows that, okay, this profile has 2 individual buyers. Now, you don't necessarily need to have all of the information, but the 3 components that you truly need in order for this to work effectively, it's their name and their phone number and their email address, okay? As long as you have the name, phone number, and email, then you're golden, okay? So I'm going to use myself as an example. Okay. Okay, there it is. So as long as you have this information and their phone number, okay, then that's all you really need to prepare, because all of the other stuff is irrelevant for the sake of submitting an offer. Now, the cool thing is, because you were able to pull the information from the MLS, it should already include a lot of the information, such as this. It already populated without me even doing so, okay? So it already added the MLS ID, the property address, the city, and all that fun stuff. And, the price, the listing price, right? But now, if you're going to submit an offer and you're asking for specific companies such as escrow or title, then you can put that information, but it's not necessarily needed at this point in time. But here's the information that I have not touched yet, but it ultimately updated the information. Yes, you're going to have to do a little bit of work, such as, what is the license number of the company? Okay. I'm just going to say for today's class, these are the license ID numbers, right? The DRE license information. But you see that it already populated my information, right? As the buyer agent representing the client. And it also populated the listing agent's information already with their email and their phone numbers, okay? So it saves you some time. Then it allows you to put all this other stuff like the lender information. The more you can put, the better the system will recognize that if there's a specific form that this information is needed, it'll populate it without you have to do extra work. Does that make sense? Okay. So again, it provides you with all this extra stuff such as home warranty, homeowners association, if it's a condominium, and if you're using a transaction coordinator. Make sure that you save this information, okay? Because if you don't save it, it's going to be lost. So up here on this section, it says save. You click here, and it'll tell you down here, it's been successfully saved. Okay, so now you have that. You go back, and you can check the system to see what information you have, right? So I just have the cover sheet. Now I'm going to include the purchase agreement, right? So now I'm going to ask the system, hey, populate the RPR. I'm going to double click on that. That's going to add it. So now it just created a cover sheet and the purchase agreement as part of the process now. But check this out. Here you can also do an organization. You can toggle if you want or just leave it, because it's easier to just kind of see the flow of chart of what documents that you have as part of the profile under Mr. and Mrs. Buyer right here, right? So you can maneuver any forms, because sometimes it's not just 1 or 2 forms. There's going to be 5 to 6 to 7. You may have multiple offers that you have for this specific buyer. So you keep track of what's going on in the documents. All right, so now that I put in the purchase agreement, I'm going to double click on it. Excuse me, done. Then I'm going to double click. The workspace, and this is again another component that I want to be clear on. It says workspace. Would you like to open the last workspace or start a new one? Okay, previous workspace. This will open the forms you were previously working on and add the new form you have selected. All right, my suggestion is always start a new workspace. Okay. So it makes it easier because it may confuse you, especially if you have multiple deals that you're submitting, one for one property, one for the other. And sometimes I see that it gets cross information and it's going to confuse you and you might accidentally send an offer to the wrong individual, right? You want to make sure that it's an alignment to it. So now I've created the California purchase agreement. And now all of the information here, as I stated in my cover sheet, right? You're going to click buyer, right? Most of, if not all of the information, but you want to double check or triple check to make sure, is there anything missing? Now, remember earlier when we were talking about the profile and settings? Well, here on the very bottom of the pages, this is where the information may be from your previous. And remember, It only it only happens when there's a litigation or there's a lawsuit if someone is going to go after us for damages or breach or whatever the case may be. They'll look at the contracts, but they also will look at the information that you have below. And if it has a different brokerage, they're going to probably send out a letter to that brokerage too, because they don't know if you're here or there. So you want to make sure that everything is in alignment, meaning that if you're with KW South Bay, as an example, that the bottom also says KW South Bay, right? Because that's where your office is located. Okay, just to get full transparency on the situation. All right, so now we go through it and see the beauty is all of this information was already added. Okay, so now let's just say that everything is good, right? I've looked through it and I'm now ready to submit this to my clients for signatures. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that if I added anything to it, I'm going to save. Okay, and then once I save, I go back and say, yes, I want to save this information. Yes, I want to leave. And now it's going to take me back to my profile. Now, if I want to get this specific form signed, I'm going to first click here, and then I'm going to go up here on e-signature. I'm going to click here, and that's going to take me to this window. Now, you do have the option if you use either or to toggle from one or the other. I chose DocuSign because it's just easier for me to navigate. You can have multiple forms or you can have one single form depending on how you want to have this set up. So once I identify that this is the purchase agreement that I'm going to be utilizing, the other part is if you have any counters that you're receiving from the opposing agent, you can also select to include. Let's say you got an email, you have a specific file, and you got a counteroffer, and you now need to get the buyer to sign on the seller counteroffer. You just click here, it'll open up a window so you can download the seller counteroffer and then have that as part of your signature settings. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's one option. So then from here, we go to next. Now it gives you this little window. This is where you're going to click and you're going to need to put the buyer's email address as an example. Okay, so that's buyer number one. And then buyer number two, you're going to get that information as well. So buyer number two as an example. Okay. And now you also, as the agent, there's certain forms you got to sign as well. You're going to include yourself. The question I get here is, should we get the listing agent to sign anything? No. Only your side for now. You're only signing your clients and yourself, and then you're submitting it to the listing agent, and let the listing agent do their job and their signature. So for the sake of the process, just your clients that you are going to be including, okay? Now, it also has other windows here that you can, if you're the listing agent, obviously you're going to check yourself as the listing agent. If you have a co-selling agent, and you're going to add if there's additional agents that are also part of it, such as a partnership or your co-buyer working with, then you're going to add that other person. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. So then we close this. Now it takes you to this window. Here's where you're going to add additional people. Okay. So if you wanted to on the original or on this, let's just say you wanted to add another person here, then you can add that person in here as a third person or as a fourth person. Now there's also another loophole that I'm going to show you, but for the sake of today's class, I'm just going to say, hey, I'm going to have these two individuals as the buyer and then myself as the buyer's agent. Now you can also toggle. If you want to be first to sign, then you just drag yourself to the very top, and that takes you here to the top, and then you'll sign first, and then your clients will sign after. Okay. Now the next part is here where it says select forms, select parties, and now we go into the signature portion of it. So now the system is trying to recognize and get the form ready. So the cool thing is when you link your DocuSign or your e-signature, it's already going to have all of the information. So it's just really reviewing it because it already knows where the buyer initials and signatures and dates are going to go. It already knows where the buyer's agent information. So on the top here, upper left section here, you can toggle, right? You can toggle and say, okay, I want to, Simon is the buyer's agent, buyer one and buyer two as an example, right? So now I just have to go down and see what information I have. Okay, cool. Look, the system already did it for me. I didn't have to drag, because you can also drag if you want a signature. Okay. So you could do that as well. If you need to drag an initial, you can do that. If you want to drag a date, you can do that as well. So now I'm just looking to the documents and making sure that the buyers, okay, so this is buyer one, and then this is buyer two. Okay, I see that here. And then here is the agent's information, right? So now I'm just going through it and looking through it, making sure that everything, you see, the initials are already there. Okay, so one of the sections that I want to put some emphasis to is that I see that a lot of agents forget to include it because the system will not put initials under mediation and arbitration. So the way you do this is very simple because the agent after will say, hey, your buyer failed to initial the mediation and arbitration. I'm going to show you how you do this. It's a default, but you have to include it, but you have to do it manually. Otherwise, the form is going to get signed, but those sectors and sections, I should say, is not going to be initialed. All right, so when you go to that paragraph, let me see where it's at. So again, you're just checking to make sure that everything, here it is. Okay, so the liquidated damage, you see how this is in color and then this is in white. Most past this. So in order for this to, you have to, one, click on it, and then you gotta add to it to make sure. So here where it says require field, you click on it, and then that changes this. Double click here, require field, and it adds the initials. Does that make sense?
So I mean, you got a little bit disconnected. So you were just saying that we should press here and just make sure that we
Yeah.
meet the required field,
I-
right?
Yeah. Sorry about that. It got disconnected, so I don't know what happened. 1 second. Okay, so even here in the training room, we lost. That was kind of weird. Okay, so let me stop sharing. And let me share my screen. Let me go back to the form. Okay, people on Zoom, do you see it now?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay. All right. So as I was stating, and I'll go back just as reference. You see how the initial is in color. Then when you go to section 26, you go to section 28, the arbitration. These are in white. There's a reason for this, and this is where you manually have to include that as part of the process. Because what's going to happen, folks, is that when your clients receive this, they're not gonna initial that. It's going to bypass it. You have to manually do so by clicking on the initial and then adding it as a requirement up here. Okay. Then the same thing on the second signature, click on that and you see how it changes color. So now when your clients receive it, they're going to see that they also have to click the liquidated damage provision. And that's the same thing for the arbitration dispute. You double click on that, require field, and also require field for your second buyer. Yeah. It's only for your reference. So the way you know is if you go on the upper section, you know that yellow is you, right? Because yellow is Simon. So I know that anything in yellow is going to be me. If you want to know what this buyer is, you click on it or you go here and it'll tell you, oh, this is buyer number 1. Purple is buyer number 2. So then you'll know that buyer 1 is this color and buyer 2 is this color. Yeah, the system already recognizes, what initials. So it's going to keep everything in order. So if you go back to the very top, you see the light blue is in the left side and the purple is on the right side. So the primary is buyer number 1, but you can also toggle. If you want buyer number 2 to be the primary, then you can also do that as part of the original process. Remember how we were able to toggle who's going to sign first, second, and then third. Okay, that's how you do it. Okay. So once I go through all of this and okay, I check and make sure everything is good. And everything looks good. I go to the very bottom as an example and check and we're good. Then the next is to send. Okay, once I send, it says, thank you for using DocuSign. All right, so now the system, you're going to get an alert, and that alert says, hey, whoever you put as first, second, and third, they're going to be getting the signatures. And then once everyone signs, you get a copy of it, and then now you're going to use that as your package presentation, and then email sent out to the listing agent, whatever you're going to put, to create, the reason why, your offer should be considered. And that's how you do it. Okay. So let's just say, theoretically speaking, let's go here. So I got the email already, and this is how the email looks, right? So I'm going to review it. And you go through the motions, okay? As the agent, I'm clicking all the yellow. Remember, yellow was who? Yeah. So now it's going through it. I just finished. Okay, and then thank you very much. And then that is done on that part. Now let's just say it should recognize, and sometimes you may have to refresh the system, or you can always log into your DocuSign just to make sure that the next party is signed. It may not recognize because it's three similar emails, so it probably thinks it already signed it. I should have used three different emails, but I didn't want to do that because this is, again, just a class and a sample for it, right? But typically, once you go into your DocuSign, most likely the information is already on there. Okay, so let's go back to our platform. We close that out, we go here. And then once you have the executed agreement, right, you can then now download it into the system so that way you have a copy of it here as well. You also have a checklist if you want to include as part of the process. So it just keeps things in alignment. You have to just add the checklist, and whatever the checklist you're going to call it, you can reference it here. All of the information you have, you can also email the document in question. So when you go to email, it's going to provide you with this link, but let me go back just to kind of show you how this works. My apologies. So let's say we're going back to the documents, right? You're going to email this now because you have it already signed by the buyer, and now you want to send it to the listing agent. So here you can send, you can print, you can move, you can save as a PDF, you can download it, you can preview, you can make a copy, you can put it into your archives, or you can delete it as part of the process. Okay. Any questions so far?
Just out of curiosity, in case we print them, we should submit a copy to each party, right? Signed copy from all the parties to each party.
Absolutely. The cool thing about DocuSign is that once they sign and everyone has completed their signature, they're going to get a copy from DocuSign of their executed agreement. But just in case they don't get one, then what you can do is send them a copy to your clients. Both emails, and then send them, here's a copy of the purchase agreement or the executed agreement, or you can have your TC, provide all of that at the end, because usually the transaction coordinator will provide a file with all of the documents included for their reference. Okay. So as an example, you can save this as a PDF, a single PDF, save, and then click here. That'll take you, and there you go. Now you have a PDF version of the form, the RPA, the purchase agreement.
Don't you need this form in order to put it KW combined?
Absolutely, yeah, and that's where your transaction coordinator, that's a separate conversation, but everything gets uploaded into your opportunities. So once you have the executed agreement signed, then yes, you upload it into the system, so that way you're in compliance. Okay, let me see if I got the email on my phone. Maybe it did pop up on my end. But that's how you create a file. Any questions on this?
If you make a mistake as far as say the two sellers or buyers, and you have the names correctly, but the information of the email you mixed it up. It's very difficult to correct it.
So the question is, if you accidentally have the wrong emails or you have it wrong,
Yeah.
so the system allows you to go back and then navigate it. So what you do is, here's the file as an example, right? So the file here, you click, and now it takes you to your main dashboard, right? So if there is any issues regarding any of the information, then the first thing is you want to go to parties. And then here's the parties in question, right? So here's buyer one, buyer two, myself. If there's any issues, you can go here, click on it, and then here the menu option, I believe it allows you to, let's see, view this information. Yeah, so here is the information. So let's say that I misspelled her name. You go here and say, okay, it's Sarah Smith, right? Then you save that information. You can also add their photo as well and any information that you want as part of the process. Then once that's done, you save, and now Sarah's information is good to go. Even if it's let's say this one. All right, go to view, and let's say it's John Smith, right? Or maybe I mix up the emails, right? I accidentally crossed their emails, then you can just go here, remove it, and then add the correct one, right? As an example. Okay. And then that should cover you. So let's say it's kw.com as an example. Okay. Phone numbers or any other information, then you can definitely update it. And then once you update it, make sure you save that information. So now I have all of this information. Now, the only concern here is that if you have a previous document, it's not going to correct it on your forms. So when you go here and I go to the purchase agreement, it may not, I don't think it updates the buyer's information, and I'll find out right now. Let's take a look. But if that's the case, oh, it did. You see? It actually did update it. So so that's a good thing. So when you update the actual information, any forms that are in existence here, I thought it didn't, but it obviously it does. I don't think the PDF will. Let's check out the PDF. I think that's the only one that's going to have just the letters that I wrote originally. But let's double check and see what it shows. Yeah, see, this one did not. Okay, so what you want to do here is, so that way you don't send the wrong one, just go here and then delete it from your file. Okay, and start over. Keep it clean. Okay, because this one did get updated. The one that you have here, delete it so that way you don't get confused. You can also put some notations if you want, just add the notations if there's anything in specific, just so that way it keeps everything in alignment. Okay. Thoughts, questions?
I did not see in my copy, so instead I went to the cover sheet and that's where I changed.
The cover sheet, no. Okay, so I see what you're saying. So if I go to the cover sheet, typically, let's look at the cover sheet is, okay, so now it's going and it's showing me the workspace. All right, so don't go to my previous, go to start new, okay? So it did also update the information. Remember, I just scribbled, but it also updated the information. And again, just for full transparency, the way you do this in order to, so everything is in flow and in alignment, you have to go where it says parties. Okay, when you go to parties, then here is where you're going to make all of the adjustments. So any forms other than the PDFs will align with whatever you have here on your transaction parties. Does that make sense? Okay.
Hey,
Got it.
Simon,
Yes.
Simon, has there ever been a case where something was misspelled or a wrong email and you had already sent them to sign it? Do you have to have them re-sign it once the correction is done?
Yeah, absolutely. So if there is an error and a DocuSign was sent, you can, if you have a DocuSign as an example, so what you do is you go to DocuSign, right? Because the system is not, doesn't recognize your account per se, right? So what you need to do is through your DocuSign platform, you log into your account, right? And then here is where you have to do some adjustments because the system is not going to recognize it through your transaction portal. All right, so if there's something that you need to do in regards to DocuSign, then my suggestion is go into your DocuSign, your username, your password, usually is your email and your password, and then now you can go in here as an example. Oops, let me go back. So let's update this information. It made me go back again and do this. Yeah, I don't know, the reception here is a little funky today, so I apologize. So let's go back. Okay, so here you can see that I still need signatures, right? So then I can just go here, right? And the only reason I have to do this is because I use the same email 3 times, right? So now if I click here, it's going to have the buyer signature, right? So disregard all this information. Okay. But here is like if you need to do any changes or corrections, maybe you misspelled the name, the email, then you can go in here. Maybe the initials is wonky. It should say, instead of AS, it should say SA, right? As an example. So you see how this all changes, right? So again, this is again where you can also add additional signatures. But when you add additional signatures, the only thing that car forms will not recognize is the third or the fourth buyer or seller. Then you have to manually drag the second signature into the to the system. Does that make sense? So I'll explain it,
The third thing.
whatever signature. So let's say, for example, right? We're ready to sign, right? So we have this form. Okay, so, and we're going through the motions of, and then we're preparing to sign.
The special form where it is that you can add. Like,
Okay, 1 second. All right, so we have the purchase agreement. Now, the thing is, it doesn't allow us to add additional. So here's my suggestion, and this is just a little trick, okay? But it's up to you. But this is what I usually typically do. So if you have 3 buyers, right? 3 buyers. So what I'll do is I'll click here, right? So you see how I added John Smith in one line instead of John and then last name Smith? So what you can do is here, okay? Now the only problem is with this is that it only recognizes one email, all right? So if it's a husband and wife, then it's perfectly fine. Either can sign on behalf. Again, just you gotta be very careful. But let's just say you have that third party. So let's say that it's Linda Smith, right? Then you're gonna add Linda Smith here. Okay. So now I close it. Oh, wait a minute. So let's see. Go back. Okay, so then I check this, right? And let's say, I'm sorry, so we'll say Smith here, right? Linda Smith. Okay, then we close it. Now we see that it has John Smith and Linda Smith. Okay, then you go to next. Yeah, see, it's so when you go here, let's see what it shows. Well, it's going into the buyers. And so when they sign, that one person sign, it's literally confirming 2 signatures. Okay, it's going to show one liner, but it's going to say that John Smith and Linda Smith sign here. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, the best way to do it, the cleanest way to do this is go into your DocuSign, right? So when you go to your DocuSign, right? Let's go back to finish as an example. Hold on, let me just adopt something here for now. So we can just, and again, this is all just a sample, right? So the best way to do it in the cleanest way, I'm just saying that if it's a significant other, they may share the same email. It's going to stamp both signatures, and that's really all you need to do. But if it's one of those where all three want to have their own signatures and all that fun stuff, then the way to do that is you're going to have to drag that additional, and I'll show you how to do it. So how you do it is this way. You log into your DocuSign as an example, right? It's doing this again. You got to love technology, but it also has its frustrations. Okay, so through your DocuSign, and I know I'm a little over my my time. So if you need to get additional signatures, then what you can do is you can start a new signature. Once you have the two signatures on the RPA, as an example, you can upload that form, right? You can upload that form and then add that form and then drag the new third person onto it. So on signature 1 or signature 2, you can actually put the third signature, and then where it says initials, you can put the third initials in between or to the side or to the left. That way you have all of the parties signed. Okay, that's the only loophole. There's no work around it through car forms where you can add additional buyers to it.
Long time ago.
It was,
Some years ago.
yeah, see, yeah, back then you could have, but unfortunately you can't now. So the system doesn't recognize it. So the only way is going in that parameter. All right. So that kind of concludes today's class. Any final thoughts, questions, or anything that I can address?
This will be on YouTube, right? On KW Shares.
Yes, yes, it
Okay,
will.
thank you.
Okay. I personally use Acrobat. Yeah, Adobe Acrobat. It's another way of doing it too as well. If you don't like using the e-signature or also the DocuSign, the other avenue is if you have the expert Adobe, which I have it here too, then you can also go in that direction as well. So good point, Lily. Is there a transaction limit in our DocuSign account? Robert, no, there isn't. Okay. Well, that kind of concludes today's class. If you have any additional questions or anything that I can address, by all means, please don't hesitate to reach out. I appreciate you all. Have a wonderful afternoon and a great weekend. And I'll see you in the next contract class, guys. Thank you very much for being part of this.
Thank you, Simon. This was great. Thanks.
You're very welcome.